start the machine called Kioptrix level 4, and this will be our Linux machine over here. So through the net discover, we can identify the IP address which is over here, that was 102. And before that, I'm gonna perform a simple scan over here. And over here, let's have a look if we can have an interface of that machine. So 192.168.0.102. So we have a proper interface of that machine of our Kioptrix level. So we have a member login page, which is your legal secure login. So our major objective of this machine is to penetrate and check all the possibilities how an attacker or a penetration tester can gain unauthorized access. So we need to check one by one. So first thing first, the Nmap scan. So over here I can see the login page, just a login page over here. So we are not going to do any attack phase right now. We're going to try recon part. So we have port number 22 is over here. Port 22, which is OpenSSH, and we have the encryption standard over here. We have port 80, which is our Apache HTTP 2.8.4, and the PHP version which is running over here is 5.2.4. And over here we can see that this is a Samba server. Port 139 is open and 445 is also open. And over here I can see the assembly version is 3.0.28 as per the record. And the assembly NetBIOS name is Kioptrix. NetBIOS computer name local admin, and we can see a proper sequence part. So what we're going to do over here, we have a web page also. So let's have to find Nikto can identify some misconfiguration services. X powered by PHP, okay. Apache is outdated, PHP appears to be outdated. What we have over here, Apache negotiation is enabled with the multi-views which allow attacker to easily brute force. Okay. Web server returns a valid response with a junk HTTP method, which is may cause false positive. There's PHP some sessions over here. And we have an icon directory, an image directory, and some other things. So in Nikto, I can see nothing relevant. So let's try the crawling part. Why I'm using the crawling part? Because we need to identify what are the directories and subdirectories other than the source side. So I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to copy the URL, and we're going to go to the Derbuster, and we're going to paste the URL as per the data. And we're going to exceed our HTTP threads. So the main reason of the thread is for faster execution part. And over here we're going to perform a dictionary that would be used for brute force attack on the server side. So user share word list. We're going to use Derbuster. In Derbuster we can use any of this one. So I'm going to use a medium one. And the file extension. We already know that the server is running PHP as per the Nikto. We can see the header part. Otherwise, you can try web to identify the technology that the server is using over there. So as per the details I can see over here, the HTTP server they are using is Ubuntu Linux, Apache version 2.2.8, and we can see X powered by and they are using PHP 5.2.4. So I'm gonna write file extension as per the website support PHP. So let's have a look over here. So the total request is over here. We can see on the screen. Proper. These are the files which is on the server side. We can see 200, 300, and 2, which is found. Log.php, which is also found. So over here we can see the status code. There's a Robert, and there's a John. So let's try a look on the tree view. Through the tree view, we can check what are the possibilities are there. Means what are the directories are there that we can use it for the further stages. So our major concern would be to check all the possibilities one by one that could be lead us for information gathering part. So over here, I can see index.php, member.php, logout.php, which is showing us 200, 100, 200, something like this. And we have index images, CGI bin, check login.php, icon doc.php. We have members, we have logout. So members, we have it's 200. It's an empty part over here. Logout, Robert and John. Who are these? I don't know, but let it check it later. And the scan has been almost done. So we have check login.php. Okay, so let's try with unmap. So he find that 139 and 445 was there. So let's have a look if we can find any explanation over here. So we're gonna give a boolean condition over here, which is your single quote or condition 1 is equal to 1 minus space. So we can try a true statement to gain unauthorized access. Oops, something went wrong with the number of page account. Please contact to the local administrator. Okay. So let's try with this backslash. Wrong password. Let's try it over here. So we have an SQL error. So it means in the backend database there is an SQL server is running. That's why we can see an error on the screen. So we have a warning of MySQL num raw supplied argument is not valid. MySQL result resource in var www checkin.login page. Valid MySQL result, which is on check login.php. And what is the main purpose of check login.php? If we look for the details on the Google, so over here, check login.php, as per I can see, it has connectivity part, or check the strings, or check the username and password from the database connectivity, which holds the username and password over here. We can see check login.php contains some text like your username and password validation. Sometimes it basically get usernames, or you can simply check over here GitHub script. This is a proper check login.php part, which is basically making a connectivity part. We have login.php also. So the major objective of this one is to simply penetrate the skills over here one by one to use it for the later part. the host name, the MySQL username, the MySQL password, and the database name. So we have an error that is basically from the check login.php. It contains some database part. So leave it over here. Let's try to enumerate the Samba server. So over here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use SMB map. I'm going to check what are the shared folders are available over there. So I can see by defaultly, if it doesn't specify the port number, it's going to connect on the port number 4445. And I can see there's two directories, which is your print directory and IPC directory, which doesn't have no access. So there is no use of this one. So let's try null session. If we get any null session on the server side, that will lead us to gain anonymous access. Yes, we are in. Through the null session, most of the attacker, they simply dive into the network administrator or the shared drives. If you check over here with the question mark, you will see all the shared drive applications can be connected. Through the RPC client, an attacker can communicate with that server and enumerate some database information. For example, which kind of data information are we going to look for? We're going to look for information like the usernames. And over here, we're going to look for the data like this. Enum users. So if we can communicate with that database, if we can communicate with the SMB server with the null session, we can enumerate the number of users which is present over there, and this is their offset value. You can say registry values. So you can enumerate the group also. Okay, there is no group, but we can see over here there are some users like nobody, Robert, Root, John, and Lonified. Otherwise, we can try a powerful tool, which is your enum for Linux -a. Extract all the applications. So the scan has been done over here, I can see, and over here we can see the group work groups. And if you go up, you can see the number of users which is present on the server. Enumerating user using SID. The users they are present is Lone Ferret, John, and Robert. These are the three users. And through the SID, shared identification number, you have to examine those things. For example, the Lone Ferret has a ID number 1000. The 1000 ID represents the pseudo user, the super user over there. The 1001 represent the local sub user, which is your John and Robert over there. And over here, through the enum for Linux, we can also do the performed the SMB client, which is an automation part over here, and you can see the system users. So, for example, think about there was a check login.php. Check login.php will, if you simply use the username and password, it will validate the both of the things. But if you have the username, you can at least try to bypass the password field. So for that reason, we're gonna try to use users one by one. I will not use nobody because this is a system user. If you check over here on your local system, nobody is just a normal user on the server side. Nobody. So our major objective of this machine will be to check all the possibilities one by one that could be lead us to for the information getting part. For example, we will try one by one. For example, let's try with the robot. So I'm going to use the SQL Authentication Bypass, and that would be my universal key, which is single quote or function 1 is equal to 1 minus minus space. So we are basically using what? We are using SQL injection. We are using SQL injection, and the type is blind SQL injection. In the blind, we are using Boolean type, true false condition. So our objective of this one is to simply extract the services one by one. That will be levers. So let's have a try this one. So let's write Robert and bypass that. And over here I can see there's was a we get the access, but we didn't get anything. Let's try with the John. Yes, we can see we have some output from the John user. So we have user John and my name is John. Okay, let's try to change the username parameter. So if I can change the username parameter according to my own need, there would be an IDOR. An IDOR is a vulnerability where an attacker can simply change the parameter value according to his own need. But if he can execute that, if he can jump to another user, there would be an IDOR, and it will be an access control vulnerability also. So let's have Robert over here. If you can jump to the Robert user, no, we are not able to run any of the Robert user. So let me try one thing. Let me try one thing over there. Let's try if we can get any session cookies or on the server. So I'm going to use a JavaScript. As a penetration tester, you have to check all the possibilities one by one, which can lead us to for information learning. Let's try this one over here. Yeah, we have a session ID over here, session cookie. But over here we can see that we have a user John and Mysql. Let's try with the user loadifier. Let's log it out. Let's try with the loadifier over here and the universal key. Oops, something went wrong. We have an error from the user loadifier, so it means it will not work over there. So we can try to use something else. So our major objective that we have only the user John and the password, which is my name is John. So what attacker do? So if sometimes attacker try to extract usernames from the server side to gain unauthorized access if the port number 22 is open over there. But in the real life scenarios, there will be no possibilities that the port 22 is open or not, because the port 22 might be hidden. Because think about the possibilities that if a server is running some uh, unwanted ports, so it could be lead us to an unauthorized access, and it could damage the entire server, and lots of things can be happen over there. So my major concern would be to check all the possibilities one by one, which can be lead us for information part, and which can be help us for the later thing. So over here, see, we're gonna try to gain access with the user John. But over here, the port 13 Samba version 3.8 was also there. Try to look for vulnerabilities. Let's have a look if we can find any public exploit. Search exploit Linux. Let's try Linux. So I don't have the exact one, but let's have a try on the Google. So over here I can see CV details of Metasploit modules related, exploit DB. This exploit is a memory corruption vulnerability present in the Samba version 3.13. And this is also, if it works, then it's okay. It receives some raw buffer overflow attack. Okay, so SMB client localhost booked, and we have some buffer memory, local port fire. So sometimes we have to look for the data which is publicly available to all, which can be lead us for information gathering. So let's try to gain SSH. SSH user John @ the IP address, the password. So we are on the server side. You can see over here SSH John 192.168.0.102. Welcome to the Legal Security system. Now we have tried the VA part. In VA part we have tried footprinting, scanning, and donation part. And this was the PT part, which we have used the gaining access. Now we're gonna try the post exploitation part. For the post exploitation part, as I mentioned you yesterday, then we're gonna use a botmilk website and a Payatu website. So for the Payatu, for the botmilk, you can see all the possibilities one by one over here that could be used for the further stages. Because if you try to penetrate one by one all the services, that could be needless. And over here we are on the server side. So we have type question mark for to get the list of allowed commands. So we have a restriction over here. We have a question mark for help to get the list of allowed commands. So you can do cd, clear, echo, exit, help, lpath, and ls. We have some restriction commands. You can do lsf and all. Yes, I can perform lsf and all. ll, total 0. Help, echo command, clear or text. Export, term, text term. Hmm. Can we do CD? Okay, now what we have forwarded path route. You have zero warning left before getting kicked out. This incident has been reported. So it means if a user has been restricted on that specific server, we can try to escalate our authority. If I do again a backslash, I will be kicked out. So we have some allow permissions just like your clear echo exists. Echo command can be help us because we can write a system call. For the system call, let's have a look on the Hotmail. See this one. If the commands are limited, you can break the jail shell. Means we have the limited commands, and we are in the jail shell means we have the restricted authority. So our major perspective would be to check all the possibilities one by one, which can be lead us for information gathering part. So you can see we can use Python, but we are not able to use Python because there was no Python over here. So we're gonna try the echo command. Check this command. A bin sh and bin bash is a different thing. Echo to execute to write OS system execution system call, and bin bash is for getting a terminal over there. We're gonna execute. We're gonna write a code with the echo command. We're gonna call the OS system and the bin sh, which will be a shell file. So over here I can see John at the rate Kioptrix 4 with a dollar, and we have a proper shell on the server. Remember, see this one. Right now, if I have a terminal which is at the rate Kali, if I do bin sh, so now I am the shell. So in the shell part, you can simply explore the entire directory, but you are not able to execute any application. So for executing any application on the server side, you have to get a bin bash, a TTY. A TTY is an important part over here. That could be lead us for information and the perspective part. Let's see the history part. You can see all the applications, all the codes have been listed over there. Export term, xterm. Yep. So we are on the server side. So today we're gonna talk about the services which is running as root. So for that, have a look over here on the Payado guide for the privilege escalation part. A guide to Linux privilege escalation. So as I mentioned you yesterday, so privilege escalation is a authority which can attacker simply escalate or simply uh, gain unauthorized permissions to permitted for read, write, and execute. So today we're gonna talk about a vulnerability which is known as exploiting services which is running as root. Yes, the second one we're gonna talk about. So exploiting any services which is running as root will give you a root permission. The famous Eternal Blue and Samba Cry exploit Samba services which generally run as root. Yes, that was 4445 obviously. Just an example, an attacker can get remote code execution and local privilege escalation as well. It was heavily used to spread ransomware across the globe because of the deadly combination. You should always check if the web server, mail server, and the database server, see, the web server, the mail server, and the database server are running as root or not. Many times, web admins run these services as root and forget about the security issues it might cause. There could be services which can run locally and not exposed publicly, which can also be exploited. You can use netstat. It shows you all the ports which is running on listening mode. So let's have a look over here. the backend database, I can see the port 3306 is running, which is your MySQL server. 139 is the session ID. 445 is your Samba server. Port 22 has been connected. So over here we can see that over in the backend server, the MySQL is running. Now what to do? Now we have to check if the MySQL server is running as root or not.
445 is Samba?
445 is Samba.
And
Samba
138?
139 is your session. When you activate in any of the server, there will be 139 port number.
No, 138.
138.
102, yeah.
Okay, I'm not aware about the 138 port number. That's a UDP port.
UDP, yeah. Okay.
135, 137, 138. So what we have over here, exploiting a vulnerable version of MySQL running as root as the get root access. So over here we can look for PSAUX grep root, which shows us the services which is running as root. Let's have a look at this one. Process execution grep, which is running as root.
Grep.
Yep. The MySQL is running as root permission. As we can see over here properly. Most of the application, as they have mentioned, this application should not be run as root permission because it could be cause unauthorized access on the server side. So over here we can see we have only services which is running as root. So as per the data, the MySQL is running. So what we can do? We can look for the configuration files. If we can find any configuration files on the server side. If anything in the log files, in the setting files hidden, can we find something in the log files? Let's try with the MySQL library files. There's a member MySQL, there's a log file, library file. Which configuration file is between the etc directories? Can get private information found, what our user can be found over there. What are the user has been doing. There is password and scripts. Anything interesting? What sensitive can be found over there? Confidential information of user who are okay. Tunneling part. This is tunneling, netcat, packet sniffing, ARP. What are the hosts of communicating with the services? It's already done. Misconfiguration files, application which is installed over there. Okay, not an issue. We know about that when there was an var www.checkin.php. Let's have a look if we can grab those files. So cd var www. Yeah, and we can see there's a checkin.login.php and we have a permission to read. So let's have a look over here. So as we know that this file belongs to the configuration files, and over here this is the PHP written, and the local host, the MySQL username is root, and you can see the password is blank over there. So this is all about your security misconfiguration, that if the services is running on the server but there is no proper authentication, and that could be lead us for people escalation part and many further things. So our major objective would be to check all the possibilities one by one, and that could be lead us for the exploiting part. So let's have a look what we can do over here. So I'm going to use those part. For example, let's have a look. Let's clear it out. We're going to use to connect with the MySQL. So the MySQL -u, that was user with the root -p for the password, and it's asking me the password, and we know that the password was blank according to the check login.php. There was no password set, so we're gonna hit enter. So as per the attacker, how an attacker can escalate the privileges? If you gain unauthorized access to the MySQL server with the root permission, you can try to escalate lots of things. One of the biggest mistakes web admin do is to run a web server with the root privileges. A command injection vulnerability on the web application can lead an attacker to get a root shell. This is a classic example of why you should never run a service as root unless it's really required. Binary exploits of the root's own programs are far less dangerous than a kernel exploit, because if we serve the crash, the host machine will be not crash, the services will probably auto restart. Countermeasures, you will see, never run any services as root unless really required, especially web, database, and file server. So we have a proper authorization permissions over here. That will lead us for information part. For example, what we can do over here. Let's see, show databases. We have information schema, we have members, we have MySQL. So let's use MySQL. If we are using MySQL, we can make our own functions. So show tables. So we have columns, functions, DB, functions, help, category, keyword, help, relationship. We have lots of things. So we have a user also. So let's try MySQL privilege escalation. MySQL based on the MySQL MariaDB Pergona affected by the privilege escalation vulnerability, which may let attacker to gain access to the MySQL system, use the further escalation, the privilege to get a root user, allowing them to fully compromise the system. So we have some CP numbers also. The vulnerability can allow a local user to access the affected database in context to low privilege user to create insert and select. See, create insert and select to escalate their privileges and execute arbitrary code and database system user. So there are lots of things we can perform. If you gain unauthorized access to the MySQL database, you can escalate the privileges. Same CV number, and it was discovered on the year of 2016. And they have given step by steps. For instance, create a directory, temp directory, MySQL exploit to store database. MySQL exploit, see, sudo mkdir temp the temp folder. Create a database user, an instance, taken a test user, the password test. Grant permission to the test user for performing operation on the database exploit. He can write anything on the server side to execute that one. Create database exploit, create user, test user at the rate local user identified by the test. See, use exploit, which is our database, grant all privileges on to test user and quit. Then he can use sudo -u test user -p. There are lots of techniques that can be used an attacker to gain privilege escalation. It's all about the information gathering that you have to use MySQL database. You can see the same thing, root system user privileges, and they have given all the possibility POCs that can be help us for information part, which can lead us for many other things can happen one by one. So over here, what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to check all the possibilities that can be lead us for information, code execution and privilege escalation database, MySQL Rapid 7, into the vulnerability. So over here, we're gonna try the function. So select star function.
Strict from.
So, sorry, it was select star from function. So over here we can see in the function part we have lib MySQL UTF system information, and we have system execution permission also. System execution, and that is the biggest thing. System execution means we can call from the system to gain permissions. So we're gonna try to grant access to the local user. So the user which I was using, it was John. So I'm gonna place John on the admin group. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna write select system execution single quote. We're gonna try the user mode, the user modification code -a assign in the group capital G admin group, and that would be user John. So what I did over here, I simply grant a permission. I simply grant a normal local user permission. Let's have a look. What is this thing? If you remember, SUID privilege escalation part. SUID plays a major role, which is your change mode permission. So So if you guys are familiar with the Linux machines, you can simply assign a proper path execution path, which is all about your permission, from the user permission, for the group permission, from the other permissions. That's why we have read, write, and execute, which has 4 to 1 bits over there. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna try, we have assigned the user mode permission to the group of admin user John. Let's try this one. The execution has been affected over there. Let's quit this one. Let's clear it out. And who was I? I was basically John. So we're gonna try sudo -l and the user John password. So it was, my name is John. So over here you can see the user John has all the permission now. He is a part of admin group. He's a super user now. If we run sudo su, he can jump to the user group. The major objective of this machine is to simply penetrate the skills and look for the vulnerabilities which can be help us. So one by one, from the starting point for the ending point, you can see all the ports, all the applications are necessary to check for a penetration testing part, which can lead us for information gathering part, in the very high level.